So standing up in the golf swing must be one of the most infuriating things that I tend to hear from lots of golfers. And that's generally what happens when people reach out for help initially. They'll kind of go, watch some of your videos, but they got very much attracted to the standing up movement. And you've got to be really careful with this, because the reason why you are standing up in the golf swing is most definitely not the reason why you think is happening. Now, most golfers will be aware they stand up because either they're inconsistent with the contact or they may have videoed their golf swing and they realise they're kind of not looking like a pro. But like I say, it's not going to be resolved by the way you think. The biggest problem you see for golfers who tend to stand up is it's not so much an early hip extension in terms of like you're not starting the downswing and then literally like, you know, you're firing everything forward. That's not really what's happening. What is happening is that you are losing hip depth. So that's why early hip extension, standing up, hip depth, they're kind of the same sort of thing, but particularly it's very unlikely that you are an early hip extender, and it's much more likely that you're losing hip depth. So what this means is if I now draw a line on the back of my hips, a golfer who loses hip depth essentially just means that, well, I'm moving closer towards the ball instead of staying back on that line. So then the question is, well, how do you stay on the line? And the answer to that is very much sequence. So what should happen in the golf swing in terms of a correct movement is your sort of hands and arms should move the club back first, and then that would be very quickly followed by a little bit of chest rotation to get the club back to a parallel position. And what you can see is when I execute this type of motion, you can see my lower body stays very passive, my chest introduces a little bit of rotation, and my hands and arms move. Now, if I now do that movement incorrectly, where I sort of turn my lower body and my upper body together, you can see a big difference. One, the club is more prone to going under plane, but two, can you see the way my shoulders and hips are much flatter? So if I do the correct one again, you can see the way this induces more tilt. And that's what happens. So when you sequence your golf swing correctly, your chest moves first, and when your chest moves against your lower body, that introduces what is known as a separation, and it produces a tilt. And that's very, very key, because from that new backswing position, okay, where you're much quieter in your lower body and you take the club like so, what you can now do is you can now concentrate on producing a nice full turn, and it will kind of feel correct. And you can kind of work on keeping this trail leg flexed, turning the pelvis kind of into this leg. That's going to give you a real solid platform, which is really important to work on your transition. So you're not going to be able to transition very well, if at all, if you don't use the ground correctly with this trail leg. But you're not going to be able to use the ground correctly and the trail leg if you don't get your sequence correct. So that basically means get set up, take the club back, hands and arms, a little bit of chest move first, but maybe just prioritize the feeling of width. That works very well with a lot of students that I work with. And then from there, then you can turn into a trail leg which stays flexed. You'll feel that activation up the leg in towards your glute, and then you'll kind of realize how much easier it is then to use that trail side to basically open up the body as you come in towards the downswing. And then you'll start to realize how much easier it is to not stand up and to not early hip extend. So if you're just somebody who either moves too much this way, you'll lose hip depth, or if you don't load the leg in the first place, then you'll just have to stand up to transition, which is why you possibly are somebody that moves this way. But the point that I'm trying to make is the fix is the same. Sequence, turning into the leg. I'll see you soon.